Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Xavier Jameson. I'm a nursing major at Delaware Tech. In this video, I'm going to be walking you guys through the use of electronic cigarettes or e-cigarettes for short and comparing them in terms of safety to traditional cigarettes. I also have a visual presentation prepared. I'll be walking you guys through that. I'll just say next slide when I want you to move on to the next slide. So we all know that for a long time, traditional cigarettes was an accepted normal thing in American society. It still actually is today. In the 60s and 70s and before that, it wasn't uncommon to see like high school kids smoking cigarettes. But since then, we've learned a lot about like the dangers and risks that they pose, and it's not really as common today. But that being said, smoking cigarettes is still the leading preventable cause of death in 2019 today. So kids aren't really smoking as many of the traditional cigarettes today, but electronic cigarettes have come up really big in the last decade, and more specifically within the last 5 years. About 1 in 4 actually admitted to using a e-cigarette in the past month. So I just kind of wanted to see, are they actually safer, or are they just kind of the same thing in a different variation, a different way that they can get you hooked on their product, basically. So what I'm gonna go over is first things first, what is an e-cigarette, and then I'm gonna compare it to traditional cigarettes in terms of the chemical composition, the effects that they have, and their secondhand smoke. So a good place to start. What is an e-cigarette? For those who don't know, it's basically just an electric battery-run cigarette, usually metal or plastic. They can come in a bunch of different shapes and sizes. They can be called different things like vapes, mods, jewels. If somebody says they have a jewel, or like, you know what jewel is, just the biggest company in the field. Basically, it is an electronic cigarette. They can come in different flavors. They let off scentless smoke, but the main thing to know is that they're supposed to be safer than traditional cigarettes. And after doing my research, I can say with a lot of confidence that that is definitely true. Um, I'm about to get into why right now. So, electronic cigarettes have much less harmful chemicals than traditional cigarettes. Burning tobacco is a process that produces 70,000 chemicals, 70 of which are cancerous. So, that right there, that makes it safer right there. That's 70 less cancerous chemicals in the e-cigarettes than regular cigarettes. There's also a lower concentration of nicotine. Of course, nicotine is the addictive chemical in cigarettes in general, and it is known to stunt brain development in teens who smoke. So we definitely want as little nicotine as possible, as little harmful chemicals as possible. If we have to smoke, we want to eliminate that. Um, so you guys can move on to the next slide. I'm gonna be discussing the effects. The effects of e-cigarettes in comparison to traditional cigarettes are pretty much, they're very similar, but they're not the same. Um, you can think of them pretty much the same, just a little more mild. Like you still will cough, sneezing, trouble breathing, dizziness, just to a lesser degree. Because, like I said, there's less harmful chemicals, a lower nicotine concentration. Um, but a lot of the things that are possible from smoking are still possible in e-cigarettes. So, like, I'm not advocating for e-cigarettes. I'm not saying they're safe. I don't recommend e-cigarettes, but they're definitely safer. Nicotine poisoning is something that you can get from smoking traditional cigarettes. It is still very possible in e-cigarettes, among other things. Nicotine poisoning raises blood pressure and gives skin problems. Um, One thing to note: long-term chronic illnesses and conditions like our cancer, our COPD, our stroke. Those are things that are still being researched because, like I said, electronic cigarettes is still a very new thing. So cancer takes a long time to develop. Um, COPD takes a long time to develop. So anything, if you read anything that says anything or relating e-cigarettes to cancer or the likelihood of cancer or stroke or things like that, just disregard that because we simply don't have enough information at this time to say anything with certainty. Just some more chemicals. Acrolein is and other chemicals present are known to alter DNA, which can cause cancer. So again, cancer. We're not saying cancer isn't possible, but there is less cancer causing chemicals in e-cigarettes than regular cigarettes, so it makes sense that there's a less likelihood of cancer. Um, so you guys can move on to the last slide. I'm moving on to my last point: secondhand smoke. The secondhand smoke from electronic cigarettes is actually not even. It's called smoke. It's not even really smoke though. It's an aerosol vapor, so it's not that thick, like dirty, gross smoke that you get from regular cigarettes. It's actually scentless. It does still have the nicotine. It does have a lot of harmful chemicals, but like I said, a lot less. So you definitely you don't want to smoke around kids. You don't want to smoke around other people because that's putting them in danger. But if you had to pick between the two, um, electronic cigarettes are definitely safer because most chemicals that are inhaled are also exhaled. So that nicotine, them heavy metals that you breathe in, you're also breathing out to your child, to your little brother, whoever's in a room. So just look out for them. But like I said, it's definitely safer. Um, so you guys can move on to the last slide. I'm gonna be wrapping it up here. I feel like as time goes on, we could definitely expect to see e-cigarettes replace regular cigarettes in like completely. Not just because of the convenience. I didn't even get into that. Like I said, they're small. You don't gotta throw them out. You can recharge them, but that's not even the reason. The reason is they really are safer. Um, so the reasons I just said, they have less harmful chemicals, including a lower nicotine concentration. The secondhand smoke and the effects much milder. The one thing that is going to change in a few years, I think the research that we get will confirm what we already think that electronic cigarettes are definitely safer. As of right now, we expect a lower likelihood of cancer. We expect a lower likelihood of COPD. Um, but we just gotta wait for the research to come in, and when it does, I think that'll confirm even more what we've been saying. Um, and I think that'll definitely make e-cigs the new thing compared to regular cigarettes. Um, thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll take any questions at this time.